The first thing I want to put up front here before addressing the connecting to source issue is the question if what I just said, kind of that this is kind of the connecting social and leadership work with the dimension of consciousness and changes in individual and collective consciousness. If that is what actually is going on in the world today, why is it that we aren't seeing more of these changes in larger institutions? So if it is true what I said, that many people individually, personally, have experiences on these deeper levels, although very often we are not aware of them, but if that's a widespread phenomenon in our time today, why is it that we are not seeing more of that in our larger institutions today? And the answer, I believe, is that the moment we try to move on a collective level from this first level, which is the level of downloading, the moment we try to go beyond the downloading and try to move down to these deeper levels of awareness and operating that allow us to respond to a situation differently as individuals and as groups and organizations, the moment we do that, we embark on a journey that is confronting us with three enemies, with three kind of sources of resistance that we have to learn how to deal with. And the first enemy, or the first source of resistance we are meeting on that journey, is called VOJ, voice of judgment. And voice of judgment is what blocks our access, our capacity to access the open mind, to access this source of intelligence, which is the open mind. And you can take any kind of creativity technique, and what you will find early on is that there is some way that helps to suspend the voice of judgment. It's called different ways, but essentially what it is that it suspends the voice of judgment and helps us to rather listening to our internal chattering and kind of all our experiences of the past that tell us to expect something, rather than listening to that inner voice, we listen kind of to the person who actually is in front of us and kind of listening with an open mind. So that's the first of resistance, and kind of in any kind of change process, that's something we have to manage both within ourselves, but also help other people in our team to do the same. And during the next class, we'll show a clip of an innovation-based company. And one of the practices you will see in that organization, that the moment someone else is starting to nail another person's idea, he gets the bell. So that the bell is kind of a stop intervention that stops that voice of judgment from interfering with the collective process of creativity, which is what is the core asset and the core process of that organization. So that's voice of judgment, the first enemy. What's the second one? So once we are dealing with that, and once we begin to see the situation with an open mind, the next one is called the voice of cynicism. And the voice of cynicism is basically, so if you begin to access the open heart, which basically means that you put yourself out into vulnerability by really opening your heart to another person and put yourself into that place. If you do that, you become vulnerable. So what is the, that can be a problem. So what is the easy way out? The easy way out is kind of this, cynicism. It is that you distance yourself from a situation and you just look at the situation from outside. And again, so don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you should not be cynical, you should never be cynical. All I'm saying is, if your goal, if you want to connect with your kind of deeper source of creativity, then the voice of cynicism is just as dysfunctional as the voice of judgment is, because it's doing the same thing. It's blocking your way on the way down. It's blocking, in this case, your capacity to access the intelligence of the open heart, to access the intelligence of hard thinking, which kind of in groups kind of is a collective capacity that we can develop if kind of we cross this threshold. And then the third one, of course, we all know very well. The third one is the voice of fear. The voice of fear, which is blocking our capacity to access the open will. What is the open will? The open will is essentially the capacity to let go of the old self and the old kind of intention, and to let come of the emerging future self, of the highest future capability. So that capacity to let go and let come, that is blocked. We are blocked to access this capacity of accessing our deeper authentic self by this enemy, by this force or source of resistance, which locks us into patterns of fear. Fear of what? So fear of letting go, fear of losing stuff, fear of not making it, fear of failure, fear of, there are many sorts of fear of being, excluded from a certain community, fear of essentially kind of fear of dying. And in fact, when I was researching the word root of the English word leadership, I found that it goes back to this Indo-European word root, light. And it literally means, that word root literally means to cross a threshold, to move from one world or one territory into another one. So this going forth, crossing a threshold, that's kind of one meaning of that word root here. And the other one is to die. The meaning of the word root of the English word leadership means to die. That's the other meaning. And what is to die? To die is exactly that. It means kind of to let go of one world, to let go of one world that we are familiar with, and to let come of another world that isn't there yet. Maybe we can feel a bit, maybe we have kind of a sensing of, yet we cannot even be totally sure about whether that other world really exists. And that other world will only come into being if we have the courage to let go of the old and to put our foot into that space of nothingness, And only when we have that courage to move forth in that way, kind of that other world is beginning to manifest through us, kind of through the conduit of our own actions. That, in a nutshell, really is the essence of leadership, the inner experience of leadership. It is, in many ways, a process of dying in terms of letting go of an old world and moving into a new world where we become the conduits, kind of allowing a new reality to come into being and co-creating it. So that's the third one here.